Here are some of the major developments we're tracking right now. Confirmed coronavirus cases around.
The San Diego Asian Pacific Islander Coalition, it started in the beginning of the pandemic in 2020. We were unfortunately seeing this rise in anti-Asian violence, death, discrimination across our communities. And so us as many San Diego Asian Pacific Islander community leaders, we realized we don't want to stand for that in our own community.
I remember the first meeting that we had on Zoom because we were all still sheltering in place. There were about 40, 50 people who showed up on the Zoom. And so we knew right then and there that this was something that our community needed.
There were a lot of different community leaders and nonprofit leaders and civic leaders that were coming together and say, like, what do we need to do together to make sure we can defend our communities from the fear and defend our communities from likely attacks and people who are going to blame Asians for bringing the pandemic to the US.
What we wanted to provide was what was lacking. And at the time, that was a group that could work with our elected officials to really raise awareness of these issues. So some of the things that we were able to do together, we worked with the County Board of Supervisors to declare hate, that our county will not tolerate hate here, anti-Asian hate, any kind of hate in San Diego County. We worked with the city of San Diego to declare the same proclamations throughout the city, even the city of a national city as well. So we were able to raise awareness, get proclamations. Again, there's always another thing to implement and to act, but it's a start. So like any community, we are a voice. We are not the voice, very careful to say that, but we are one of the voices of our community. And really our job is to be that megaphone, that catalyst for our other community members who may not quite feel safe or don't even know that you can contact our elected officials, that you can contact particular leaders to share what is really happening in our communities.
API community as a whole is often talked about sort of in a monolithic sense. The term gets used to wrap up so many different communities that we forget oftentimes that the experiences of each community, their stories, the history and culture that comes with it, drastically differs from one another. And they're not always equally represented or thought of when it comes to not just media, but also issues. And so I think the coalition recognized that really early on. And one of the objectives was to bring folks together in a way that would allow us to amplify each other's voices. It meant that a small community or organization of all volunteers might now have access and partnership and an opportunity to share information, to share opportunities and events, but also to advocate for issues.
The U.S. has never defined what Asia is and who are Asian Americans, Pacific Islanders as well, and Pacifica communities. It always changes, and so I think that's very unique for our communities. Now that we're expanding to this geography, we've connected and reached out to West Asians, those who might be considered Middle Easterns in the U.S. construct. We don't never really think about them as being part of this Asian community, but they're very much part of this racialized group of Asian in the United States. There's all these policies around Pacific Islander communities, who gets to be a citizen, who is a territory, what are considered nationals, and that complexity also allows us to have that hard discussion of who we are, and we are allowed to talk about our identities in our own way, in our own words, the way we want to.
San Diego's newest city council member was sworn in by the first non-white person ever elected to the council. Kent Lee will represent Council District 6 and says he's grateful and humbled by his new role.
The San Diego Asian Pacific Islander Coalition, to me, has made very catalyzing impacts in a lot of ways that we don't often see until later on. We've gotten a few of our Asian Pacific Islander leaders elected into offices and very key spaces and holding space for them to have effects on the policies and perspectives of our community.
There are people who can do these jobs, who would be a great fit to serve in the community, and they actually need to be asked. They may not be thinking about it, but they need others in the community to uplift them, to encourage them, and then to support them to do that. I think that's why I'm here. I'm here as a a collective result of community members giving me that push and then also giving me the support. These volunteer capacities are often what help to bring up community leaders and voices who help to represent us as a community in a broader way. And so I think as a vehicle, providing a platform to help bring up those voices, to tap into the next generation, from a youth standpoint, all of that is really critical to building future benches of leadership capacity, whether it is, again, for a nonprofit organization or elected office or some other capacity.
It's not an easy position to be trusted by your community members and to also be able to have the ear of certain leaders. So as much as we could, for those of us who had those rare positions, to utilize that. I mean, what are we doing if we're not utilizing the privilege that we do have to uplift the voices of our community members?
I think another success for the coalition is that now we also have newer generation of people that are engaged, so that we can really see the arc of the history of the movement.
Personally, for myself, I grew up in East County of San Diego, and there weren't a lot of people who looked like me. And if there were, it weren't that many Vietnamese people, I think, in general. I think once I moved to more like central areas of San Diego, I realized there's a big community of a big Asian community out here, and I think that made me want to learn more about my culture and find more nonprofits and more spaces where I could serve my community and be able to learn not only about myself, but about other people within our community. And I think that's one of the major factors, is that I want to learn about myself, but also be able to help the people that are just like me, struggling in the same places, wanting to make changes in the same places as well. So, yeah.
I've gained community, really, and I know it's kind of a buzzword to say that, but just I've met so many amazing professionals in so many different spaces doing all kinds of amazing work, things that I really couldn't have even known that existed here in San Diego.
It's pretty beautiful to see so many different cultures just combined into one thing, and it's everybody's moving toward the same goal of just appreciating each other. And it was really cool to see that, because it's as much as we like to talk about that, you can hardly ever see it in one room.
Other things that we've helped do, for example, is our community helped serve as ambassadors and stakeholders as they were forming Asian American Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander Fund with the San Diego Foundation. And so they went to the different communities, asked again for the different challenges that we were going through. They did research with a research fund, asked us to help connect their researchers to different community pockets to help us find the data in our community to figure out the challenges that we were really facing behind the scenes. And then from there, what ended up happening is the fund then was able to focus down on a key challenge that was affecting a lot of our communities, which was mental health for our youth especially. We found some very tough knowledge that unfortunately within our ANHPI communities, youth specifically were having higher suicide rates and lower mental health because of numerous factors, even though we're not the largest minority population. And so that advisory board that came together chose that as the first issue that we wanted to invest in real solutions with the community for, put out an RFP to the community, and then 9 organizations were then funded in different pockets of the Asian American and Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander communities across San Diego County and beyond to do mental health direct services and programming that supported mental health youth.
That's something that I really took away from my experience at the coalition, is that all the ways that we've been invited, in different places to present about our coalition, those are actually just invitations for us to tell the rich story about who we are and what makes us a vibrant community. I will continue to take away with me to be able to blend in some of the hard truths about discrimination and structural racism, but also understand that's part of the story of making us resilient and making us continue to commit to that larger vision of making this country the most inclusive place for all types of people that want to call this place home.
To borrow from one of the unions that I did a lot of work with, we are always better together. We're always better together.
So I think in a time where it does feel extremely dark, I think we often get reminded that the only way to fight that is to actually bring in light. And that light tends to be carried by individuals who are doing the work.
I think that's what cripples a lot of us. And when we do our doom scrolls, we see so much news of like things that are affecting community members, things that are meaningful to us. What can we do in that situation? And a real answer is you can't do anything solely by yourself. You need to get involved with your community, because that way that burden and that weight is not on just you alone.
I think when we forget that there are folks around us who also share our experiences, share our identities, it's so easy to fall into despair. It's easy to fall into fear. It's easy to just want to stay in your house and be safe, but you also can't live that way. So it's important for people to know that you do have a network, that there are people here who do this work day in and day out, and you just have folks who care about you.
There's definitely organizers and people that have been advocating and doing this work for years on end, not only in the ANHPI community, but also beyond. We have a lot to learn from them. But I think knowing that there's spaces like the Coalition to get involved with, so you don't have to tackle that news alone, is the most reassuring part for me, and it gives me the hope that we need, because there's people that are doing the work, and there's people that will do the work with you. You don't have to do it by yourself.
So whenever you're ready, even if you're not part of an organization, you can still come check us out. We do mixers, we do events, both in person and still on Zoom. For those folks who may not feel comfortable, just come check us out.
We really encourage everyone to get to know the San Diego Asian Pacific Islander Coalition. There's truly something for everyone. Again, you can get involved with a leadership position in one of our 50+ organizations if you have the capacity to do so. You can volunteer with these different organizations who have all kinds of year-round programming and events. There's truly some way that everyone can get involved with, small or big, and all of it means a lot to the communities that we're serving, and it makes us that much more proud to exist as a coalition, and knowing that we are out here supporting each other. We're not doing this work alone, and we welcome other people to join us in that.
We are the San Diego API Coalition.